So just last night was a release of Outbreak, and my gosh, this is an incredibly new experience for zombie players. Like, this is not something we are used to in the slides. I mean, kind of there are like some like steps that are similar, but it's pretty different. Trust me, guys. When you play it, you'll know if you guys haven't already realized that. But because of it being so different, I think we should probably make this video a guide for this mode, and this is just going to be me talking about everything that is important, like how you get the wonder weapons, like how difficult it gets at certain points and what rounds you should look out for, and of course how to do all the missions, especially in the higher rounds. And of course, higher rounds in this are not that high of rounds. And keep in mind, when I say rounds, I know people aren't calling them rounds right now, but I'm calling them rounds because that's what we called those things in the top right of the thing in zombies for the longest time. So I'm going to continue calling these things rounds, but for every mission you do and every time you move on to a different map, you'll get a new round is what I'm talking about here. But regardless, with that all said, let's go ahead and jump right into this video. So the first thing I think we should mention is when super sprinters show up, because they show up very, very soon, and that is on round 6. You already have super sprinters. Now, they're not that powerful or they don't have that much health on round 6, but they are there and they deal a decent amount of damage. So just be careful when you get to round 6, because it caught me by surprise when in my first game when I had super sprinters on round 6, and it was just a big surprise, and it got me down, and that's how I died in my first game. It was actually after I did the objective too, so I could have just actually moved on, but regardless, not really the point. Either way, round 6 is going to be the round where super sprinters show up. Now, unfortunately, just the round after that, on round 7, it kind of gets even more difficult, because at this point, your regular guns that aren't like, the best regular guns, like a Gallo M16 or something like that, like those things are pretty much completely useless already on round 7. Like between round 6 and 7, there is such a large jump in zombie health that it's actually insane. So at this point, you really want to try to move on to be trying to find yourself a wonder weapon. And for those wonder weapons, there are 3 of them on the map. There is the Die Shockwave, the Ray K, and of course the Ray Gun. Now, how you get these is kind of a pain too. So it's pretty much all down to luck how to get these. So you just have to be lucky that you get these when you need them, because if you don't, it's unfortunate. Obviously, the higher rounds you go, the more likely you are to get these, but let's go over how you get them. So for the Shockwave, this one is probably the easiest one to get, and you could actually get this one by doing trials at all the maps. I don't believe you get the Ray K or obviously not the Ray Gun out of trials, because I was doing trials for like a ton. My entire team of 4 was doing trials forever, and nobody got the Ray K or the Ray Gun, and they're only getting the Shockwave. So I'm pretty sure you could only get the Shockwave from the trials. And of course, the Shockwave isn't the best gun in the world, but it is going to actually kill zombies, unlike regular guns, everything like past round 7. So I'd recommend picking that up, because the thing is that ideally I tell you to pick up the Ray K and the Ray Gun, but unfortunately they don't let you do that, and you can only hold the Ray K or the Ray Gun, but you can hold the Shockwave with either of those. So your ideal setup should be a Shockwave with Ray K or Ray Gun. But of course, how do you get the Ray K or Ray Gun? This is a bigger pain too, because this one you only get from 2 ways, because you don't get these from trials, and you get the Shockwave this exact same way too, so keep an eye out for it when you do this too. But by killing boss zombies like Panzers, I don't think the Tempest drops it. Mangler might, Megatons will. I think the 2 big ones you gotta watch out for is when you're killing the Panzers, Manglers, and Megatons. Those are going to be the big ones. I think I've got most of my drops from Megatons, so Megatons seem to be the big one to drop these. So whenever you kill those, just make sure you're not missing out on a Ray K or Ray Gun when you kill them, because in this mode, they do disappear if you leave them on the floor, unlike in traditional zombies in this game. So just keep an eye out on those things, because the Ray K or Ray Gun is going to be your saving grace moving forward. But regardless, pretty much round 8 going forward is the most difficult this mode is going to get. Like if you could survive round 8 and for the next 5 rounds, because there's different I guess trials or missions those rounds, you're pretty much set. You could survive the rest, because at this point, like, the zombies are already as strong as they're going to get. They're already as fast as they're going to get. They may get a little bit more health as time moves on, but you probably have a wonder weapon at this time, so it doesn't really make a difference. And the only other thing is you might get more boss zombies later in the round. So it's pretty much round 8 going forward is pretty much as difficult as it gets. But of course, now we got the general game understood, let's actually move on to what you're even going to be doing on this mode. And these are the 5 objectives you could do around the map. And we're going to go by these one by one. And the first one we're going to talk about is the defend step. So how this defend step is done, there's a location marked on your screen, and you could go to that location and you have to find a head at that location. Just find a random zombie head and you have to pick up that zombie head and take it to this machine. The zombie will start yelling, and then other zombies and boss zombies and just everything will be thrown at you. Everything except the Panzer, thank goodness. You do get megatons and literally everything else though, so worry about those guys, but you don't have to worry about a Panzer because luckily Panzer doesn't show up. But either way, it starts getting swarmed, and you have to make sure both you, of course, survive, and also the machine survives where the zombie head is, because obviously it's defense step, so you have to defend that thing. This one's actually generally easier in the higher rounds once you get used to it, because most of the locations on all 3 of the maps, it's all pretty much the same. They all give you pretty, I guess, they give you a lot of room to work with, so you don't have to like be in a really tight corridors type of deal area, and you can just like really move around and then shoot at the things from a distance and stuff like that. So you don't really have to worry about any of that. So I think this one's one that's more easy as time goes on, but overall, you know, once you get used to it, it'll be pretty easy as you go. Just be careful when the megatons show up and those guys. And also the defend thing, the thing you have to defend has a ton of health, so don't worry if it gets hit. Don't get yourself killed. Like, don't, oh my gosh, they're hitting, I gotta go to risk my life for that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Unless it's about to break, you really don't need to be risking your life to get zombies off of it. Like, you're gonna die before that thing's going to break on most occasions. So just don't die protecting that thing, because it does have a lot of health. But then again, just don't let it get hit too often either. The next thing is the Xcore, and the Xcore is actually slightly different sometimes, and I want to explain that. So the Xcore, for how sometimes you'll do it, you will obviously go to back of a truck, and then there'll be a rover that comes out with the monkey, and you have to escort this thing to 3 different locations. And each time it goes to a location, it'll say whether that's right or wrong, and then move on to the next one. And you do that 3 times, and on the 3rd one, of course, that'll be the correct one. Now, the other option for this, and it's pretty much the same thing except slightly different, is that it'll go to 3 different locations, but instead of just like saying that's the wrong one for the first 2, for some reason, it'll enter into it, making you think it's the right one, but then it'll get launched into the air, and then you have to go find the rover and then escort it again. So keep in mind there's 2 slightly different versions of the same escort mission, but they pretty much get the same thing done. It's you have to escort it to 3 different locations, 3 different times, and on the 3rd one, it will complete every single time. And of course, you have to defend that thing because zombies will hit it. But about this mode, I want to say right away, don't be afraid to back off of the rover. Just don't be afraid that zombies are going to swarm it, because again, same thing with the defense step. It has a lot of health. It's not going to break that easy. So don't be afraid to back off if you're in a tight situation. You can move pretty far away and still shoot at it from a distance if zombies are too close to it. So don't be afraid to back off. Another thing is that zombies can only hit the rover while it's not moving. And the only way the rover doesn't move is if you're pretty far away from it. So as long as you're close to it, zombies won't be able to hit it, which is actually super, super nice because it's annoying when zombies can hit it while it's moving. But luckily in this game, it actually can't be hit unless you are not very close to it and it's not moving. So if you do want to have like a little strategy, is that you could actually just go walk by it and it'll move for a bit, but then move away, and then it'll keep moving for a little bit because it doesn't immediately stop when you're not next to it, but it'll move for a little bit after that, get the zombies away from it, kill a couple of them, and then get closer to it again. So there's a lot of ways to go about this, but overall, once you get this down, you'll be pretty easy. The one thing I say to worry about is that there are Tempest on this, and Tempest could actually EMP it and it stuns it in place, which is incredibly annoying. And when it's EMP'd in place, of course, zombies can surround it, and no matter how close you get to it, it won't move, so zombies will swarm it regardless. So be careful with Tempest. Try not to let the Tempest shoot it. I know it's not always like the easiest thing to just like not let the Tempest shoot it, but regardless, it is something. I guess I should also mention at each stop during, like, you're going to get extra swarms of zombies, like boss zombies and panzers will spawn on you also. So watch out for that. Overall, Xcores are probably one of the more difficult ones, but it's still something once you get used to, you'll be able to figure it out. The next one we want to talk about is Retrieve. So there's not much to say about Retrieve, but let's explain this. So Retrieve is that you have to go get 2 crystals from around the map and bring them back to the rocket. And this one is kind of a pain because when you are holding the crystals, you move very, very slow. You can't, well, yes, you can use guns, but I mean, you're moving so slow. And I mean, the slowing your movement speed with a mixture of super sprinters is never a good combination. It's just not, and it's such a pain when there's super sprinters on you while you are walking with the thing all slow. But the only real advice I could give you on this while you are picking up the 2 canisters and taking them back to the rock is just use your the field upgrade that comes with it that knocks all zombies that are by you if you are in a tight situation, obviously. And if you're playing co-op, you know, just protect the guy who's doing it. Maybe not have all 4 players on the guy who's carrying it because all the zombies are going to just swarm that area. So maybe have like a split team of 2 that go, and or if you have 4 players, assuming that you have one team go for A, one team go for B, and then you just bring it back themselves to go. So you have split zombies, so you have to worry about as many zombies or something like that. Just try a bunch of different things that make it easier on this to have less zombies on you. There's not that many boss zombies that spawn on this, so you don't really have to worry about them. But as for solo, I mean, I think they slow down the zombies when you are playing solo, but it's still a pain. This is probably the worst for solo. It's just not a good step to have when you are on solo. It's probably the most difficult one when it comes to solo. And if you're not careful, it can be very difficult for co-op too. Regardless, the next one I want to talk about is the elimination one. And what this is that you have to go to a machine that will spawn in an elite zombie, which is the Panzer, or I think it could be the Megaton too. Yeah, it can be the Megaton now, remembering. And what you have to do is you have to shoot this guy and try to kill him. And while you're damaging him when he first spawns in and you run to where he is, he actually will get into a dark ether orb and then fly away again, and you have to track him down again. And you have to do this 3 times, and once you deal enough damage those 3 times, within the time that it gives you, you will then kill him and you'll be good to go. And these guys actually are the ones that are going to drop you some wonder weapons, so keep an eye out on this one because these elite guys will kill him. Either way, this is pretty much the easiest one to do later in the rounds when you have wonder weapons and everything. But a hint I will give you, or not a hint, but a little trick I'll give you guys on how to kill these guys. And this is something that Andy actually told me about. If you guys don't know who he is, I play with him one time. He streams his own stuff and all that stuff. But regardless, he's the one who mentioned that the death machine is actually pretty good against boss zombies. So if you can, and if could have enough blue salvage for it, it's only 100. I'd recommend picking that up. Just be careful while you're using it because it really does slow you down when you are using the death machine. So don't get swarmed by sprinters in the back and get killed like that. That is not ideal. But regardless, and for the final thing, we have holdouts, and holdouts are probably going to be the most difficult one out of all of these when you get higher into the rounds. This one's really the one that's going to be getting you killed. And how these work is just exactly how it sounds. You're going to have to hold out in a smaller room for a certain period of time, and you just have to not die. Pretty simple stuff, but later in the rounds it gets a lot more difficult because you have megatons, you have mimics, and you have manglers, and just a whole bunch of crazy things spawning on you, of course, alongside the super sprinter zombies with a ton of health. Now, I do have to mention, they are not all made equal. Not all holdouts are made equal, because the holdout location changes based on the map you're on. Let's say you are on Gorlov or Golavo, the new Fireteam map, or if you're on Alpine, or if you're on Ruka. So the one that is by far the easiest is Ruka, because if you just go upstairs, there is a camping location that keeps all the zombies in front of you. And on co-op, it's incredibly easy if everyone just has the die machine and or the not die machine, the die shockwave, and everyone just uses that, you'll be fine. But as for the other two locations, it actually becomes incredibly difficult because they both have a camping location of their own. It's actually hidden behind a door that you have to open. But when you get into those two rooms, is the big problem with them is that it doesn't keep all zombies coming from one direction. Instead, you have a door and then also a window in these two rooms, which I still recommend camping here if you are playing co-op. But at the same time, just be careful with those windows, because if you are not, you'll go down pretty fast. So I still recommend camping there, but at the same time, just be careful. As for solo, I do still recommend camping in Ruka, but I don't recommend camping on Gorlova or Alpine, because you will probably die if you are camping on solo, and just try to train around those maps and hope for the best. But Ruka is by far the easiest one, and it's very easy to camp on that. But that wraps it up for everything that you should probably keep an eye on when you are playing this game mode. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on this mode and what you're thinking about all these things. Just leave those all down in the comment section. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If this video was useful to you, then I would recommend, and hopefully you would like, subscribe, bell, share, and all that great stuff. But of course, I'm going to go. I'll catch you guys next stream, video, or whatever the heck it may be, and later, guys.